Hello, I'm Nathan Simmons.
And I'm Dustin Goes to Hollywood, and if you were part of the January 6th insurrection or supported it, fuck you.
Hey!
And this is the Silver Linings Playlist, a podcast that tries to find the silver lining in watching dumb racists panic.
Yeah.
Whole point of the show.
It's every episode, we find one racist, we point at them, Nelson from The Simpsons style, and go, ha ha. There's not a lot of laughs in this week's movie, but I mean, that's why we brought in the big guns this week.
That is true. We brought in someone who I think will have a lot to say about this movie and had a lot to say while watching it.
Yeah.
And you know what, Nathan? This is monumental because now this is the first time.
Oh my fucking God.
You know what I'm going to say. This is the first time she could be introduced with this title, but please welcome everyone. The lovely, the talented, the beautiful, my wife, Priscilla Hendry.
Hello.
His wife.
Oh my God, my wife.
Yay.
We can finally do it. It's official now. Thank you for joining us, Priscilla. You got a lot to say?
Of course, I got a lot.
Got a lot.
Got a lot.
Yeah.
Last on the show, we did Grave of the Fireflies together, and then our speed commentary, right?
Yes.
What a collection, what a Criterion collection we're putting together with you, Priscilla.
I know.
So there's actually a couple different reasons that, Priscilla, you're joining us this week. But I guess let's reel this back in real quickly because this may be someone's first episode. As Scott Ackerman always likes to say on Comedy Bay Big, it's someone's first and someone's last.
Absolutely. This might be.
This might be the one that is the nail in the coffin. So this episode comes out January 6th. And if you've seen this movie, make do with that what you will. Mm-hmm. This movie, Soft and Quiet, came out in 2022. And I want to put a little bit of a preface right here and say, if you haven't seen it, if you don't know what it's about, I highly recommend that you watch this movie before you listen to the episode.
Yeah.
If you're even remotely curious about what it could be about. Don't watch the trailer. Don't read the synopsis. Just go into it blind. That's how I went into it. And I enjoyed my time. The only caveat to that is I will tell you now what the movie is about in terms of like if we had a keyword, like, you know, like an IMDb keyword, what you would see about this.
Sure.
Again, if you want to go into it blind, go now, pause the episode, come back. Okay, so this movie is about racism to the most extreme. Yeah. And if you are triggered by something like that, especially when it comes to sexual assault, if you're triggered by, Asian hate crimes, especially with that movement that happened during the pandemic, it seems to still loom heavy over this movie in particular. Maybe sit this one out. That's totally fine.
Yeah, and I would say, like, if you start watching this movie, especially if you're a person of color and you're like, I can't sit with this, it doesn't get easier to watch.
No, it only gets worse.
I don't think there's anything wrong with bailing on this one if it just feels too close, too upsetting. That being said, I think this is an exceptionally well-made movie, and I don't want to say I'm excited to talk about it, but I'm chomping at the bit to talk about it because unlike you two, I watched this one alone in my office with headphones on, and I think that is the most that's the worst way to watch a movie like this because I feel trapped with these people.
Yeah, JT is also here with us. He hasn't said anything yet, but JT, this was your first time seeing this, right?
Yeah, it was, and I went into it blind like you were talking about. I did have one buddy who is a listener. He was like, so what's the next episode? And I was like, some movie called Soft and Quiet. I've never seen it. He's like, oh Lord.
Yeah.
He's like, there's nothing good about that. And then he was like, well, that's also the theme of the show, so I get it. And I was like, okay.
That is such a funny thing, though. Like, I will frequently be like, I'll tell my fiance, we're going to watch a movie tonight. And she's like, okay, is this for the podcast? And I'll say, yeah. And then she's like, great. So there's no hope going into this. Like she just always knows.
It is a weird dichotomy of our show in that we try to be as upbeat and have fun as much as possible. And then we talk about movies like How to Die in Oregon and Grave of the Fireflies and now Soft and Quiet. All my picks, strangely enough.
Yeah.
I had another movie on the schedule for this week instead of Soft and Quiet when we were first putting the schedule together. And when the election ended how it did, I swapped it out with this one because I felt this would be A, an appropriate time to discuss this movie, and B, an appropriate release date for this episode.
Yeah.
I'll keep that other movie in my back pocket for another day. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, you and I live in Florida.
We sure do.
And JT lives in Alabama.
And Priscilla.
As does Priscilla. And it just feels like the people depicted in this movie are not being as quiet as they used to be. And it feels like it's only getting louder and worse.
Yeah.
And so there's a part of me that's just like exhausted by watching this movie because I then had to still sit with this kind of mentality for 2 hours, or not even 2 hours, hour and a half. Yeah. But I mean, we'll get into it. But the thing that I really appreciate about this movie is that it's so good at showing how quickly these kind of people turn on each other.
Yes, that was the little bit of reprieve I got is when they did all start screaming at each other. I was like, yeah.
There are a few cathartic moments in this movie, yes.
And it's also difficult when you then, like, if people didn't know who we are and they only saw pictures of the four of us.
Sure.
And, maybe Priscilla's pink hair notwithstanding, but maybe if they saw all four of us in a picture and we said, oh, we're all from Florida and Alabama, I feel like anywhere else in the world, people automatically have a preconceived notion of what our beliefs are, what our day-to-day life is like, and this movie kind of puts a magnifying glass up to that, to the worst of those kinds of people.
But then you hear me speak for like 5 seconds, and I think you know that. I think you know what my deal is.
It also sucks because us being from this area, either we interact or we're related to people who think just like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really like, that's what was making me so uncomfortable, because it's like, man, not to this extreme, of course, but it's like, I know there's people,
but it's a slippery slope, my man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As this movie shows, I mean, someone shows up for a meeting who's just a little racist, and then by the end they're committing heinous acts with, we'll get into it.
And I also want to put a fine point on it that the obvious is we are four white people talking about this movie that deals exclusively with racism. But because this is a hard topic to talk about, I figured it would be a good idea to bring on the person that showed me this movie, and also, of course, discuss it with you guys because you're here every week anyway. But Priscilla, we like to watch TikToks individually and then kind of show each other at the end of the day. Here's my collection of good shit. Here's my collection of funny shit.
My fiance and I do that with good tweets.
There you go.
Fewer and far between now.
Absolutely. And speaking of racist cesspools, Twitter.
Yeah, we jump ship.
Yeah, I jump ship from Twitter for sure.
This movie has a blue check, I think.
It probably does. And owns a Tesla. Priscilla showed me a TikTok of a scene from this movie, and it was the reveal of the pie, which is, I feel like, the turn in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, what the fuck is this movie? We got to watch this thing. And that was all it was.
I have a lot of thoughts about that pie.
I do too. I got some thoughts too, but it was, Emily bringing this pie. It was a bunch of women, all, having girl time. And then the aluminum foil gets peeled off the pie and you see what is in there.
And we just hold on the pie for a while.
For so long.
Yeah.
And so we're like, well, what is this movie? What could this movie possibly be about? And then we went and watched it, and I, had a pit in my stomach at the end of it. But
this movie genuinely made me like nauseated.
Yeah.
My heart was pounding. My face was hot.
Yeah.
Like I have not had a physical reaction to a movie like this in a very long time.
And we just did Battle Royale last week where a bunch of kids died.
I know. Yeah.
But I think that just that one image of the pie, and we'll get to it in a minute because I want to hold as long as possible, just like the reveal of what is under that aluminum foil is in the movie.
Sure.
But I feel like I'm kind of two minds about it, in that was the perfect way for me to go into this movie because I had a little bit of a concept of what it was going to be about.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I feel like, again, if you can handle this kind of topic, kind of like Schrodinger's cat, like if you don't know what it's about and you go into it, like you may really fuck with this movie because of what it is doing. Because as you said, it is masterfully done, I think. But if you go into it, you're like, I want to see what this movie is that these guys are talking about, and you are triggered easily by this kind of thing, then I feel bad sending you down the wrong path. But that's just where I'm coming from at the start of this discussion. But Priscilla, you and I have seen this movie twice now.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on it from the first time you saw it versus how you saw it this time?
Okay, well, without spoiling anything too soon,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things that you notice later on in the movie that happened early.
Yes.
And now watching it from the start to finish again, I could see it happening in real time.
Yeah.
Makes it worse, a lot worse.
Mm-hmm. No, I think JT texted me as he was watching the movie and was like, man, now that I know what was under that aluminum foil, it makes the scene at the beginning of her gleefully showing the kid that much more fucked up.
Well, and knowing that her children's book is like thinly veiled radicalization and that everything about her leads back to her agenda.
Yep.
And it makes especially that opening scene so much more upsetting.
Absolutely. So I guess before I do the info dump, I do want to discuss one quick thing here. This movie was filmed during the pandemic. It was about a year after the pandemic started. And actually a bit of unfavorable serendipity. The first day of production was March 16th of 2021. And if that date maybe sounds familiar to you, maybe it doesn't, that was the date of the Atlanta spa shootings where 6 Asian women, along with 2 others, were killed. Right. And it was kind of the peak of the sweep of Asian hate crime that kind of found its way across this country. So
I was constantly terrified for my sister and her husband when they were living in Texas, a Korean man in the middle of the South. I mean, granted, there's a sizable Korean population in Texas, but like it really felt like this is what we're doing, right? Like this is who's being targeted right now. And I mean, that's the thing about this movie is that it doesn't feel as heightened as things get. This is not like a jawbreaker level of, wow, what a crazy thing that happened. This is, and here's a dark comedy about it. This feels real in a way that is so discomforting. I mean, this movie was inspired by the Central Park bird watching incident with the most famous Karen of all.
Yep.
And then extrapolate that into how nasty and openly proud white supremacists became in the last few years.
Yeah, and I should also mention the director is a Brazilian American woman with both Chinese American parents and Brazilian parents. So like she is at the forefront of this stuff, especially being, I'm assuming, a first generation, maybe second generation born. Yeah, I think the last thing I want to say, and then JT, we can roll the film reel, is if nothing else, I hope this episode makes more people aware of this movie and they seek it out. I don't know if you can purchase it on physical media. I don't believe so. It is available for rent and to purchase on Amazon, and I think it's even up for free on Daily Motion, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, wow.
It's hard to find. Like if you try searching for it in like your smart TV, probably won't get any results. I didn't. But yeah, it is available to purchase.
And I had no concept of what this was because the poster for this movie is like this abstract, smoke billowing form. And so I just always assumed it was like a possession thriller or something, especially we'll get into the Blumhouse of it all. But the Blumhouse banner did not dissuade me from thinking this was a supernatural movie.
I know, right? And the title, I mean, like it's kind of an oxymoron because these women are not soft and quiet. They're loud and hard or whatever, hard and loud. But I would like to, we'll get into it, but I do want to talk about what that title could mean. Yeah. But anyways, let's roll the film reel. Let's do a quick info dump here. So as mentioned, the year is 2022. The director is, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Beth de Araújo. The film stars kind of specifically and intentionally no-name actors, like low-key people here.
Loki's in this?
Loki is in this. He is the god of mischief. So in this movie, they're doing some mischievous stuff. Stefanie Estes, Olivia, Luccardi, Eleanore, Pienta, Dana Millican, Melissa Paulo, John Beavers, Cissy Lee, Rebekah Wiggins, and Shannon Mahoney. I hope I pronounced those names right. Could not find any info on the budget of this thing because this was a very, very low budget indie thing that they didn't have a lot of information about. As far as I could tell, there was a limited theatrical release that only grossed $3,000, which is not bad for a virtually unmarketed movie.
A movie that played at South by Southwest and then like 5 other theaters.
Yeah, that's about it. And it currently sits at an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I feel that's accurate.
That's accurate, yeah.
Yeah, most of the negative reviews that I've seen are really come back around to, do I want to spend time with this story?
Yep.
And and we'll talk about this as we go on, but does the film do enough to tell you that, like, to give these people their comeuppance or tell you that they're bad people? And I think it does.
Yeah.
The thing that's fascinating about the line that this movie walks is that you do see how pathetic these people are and how quickly these things escalate and get ugly and the lies that they tell themselves to make it okay. But I could also see, a white supremacist watching this movie and sort of nodding in agreement during the opening scene and then sympathizing with them, when their quote unquote prank goes wrong. But I think for the most part, this movie does a really good job of showing us that, like, these folks are pathetic.
Yeah.
I that's what I kept coming back to. There's not any empathy for them and what they do.
Yeah, I found most of my notes were quotes that characters said and then my instant rebuttal to their logic.
Yes.
And then I also found my notes got less, when the movie starts and I'm seeing all the signs of where things are going because I've already seen the movie, I'm writing feverishly like, oh, this.
Yeah.
And then as it gets long, as the movie goes along, I have less and less notes because I'm just like engrossed in the tensity of this thing.
But all that to say is, I think if this movie completely bounces off of somebody, I don't fault them for that.
No,
like that is, I don't think that is a I don't think that's a failing on someone's part if they don't want to reckon with this material.
Yeah, if you don't jive with this anymore, like if you're over this whole situation, I fully get it. As someone who was incredibly involved in politics for the last 8 years, basically.
Sure.
And who has since said, fuck it, nothing of this matters, and has gone completely nihilist with the whole thing. I fully get it. And that's just my apathy, and I'm fully aware of that. I know it's not a good thing.
But I will say, if you haven't found yourself radicalized in some way in the last decade, then you're just not really paying attention to the world.
And that's unfortunate, right? It is unfortunate that, like, we're dealing with yet another instance of talking about, because we did Judas and the Black Messiah last season.
Right.
And, I felt like it was important to do this one because it's kind of from the other perspective, Sure. This will probably be the last one I do like this for quite some time, I would hope.
Yeah.
So. And in an attempt to have a little bit of levity for this episode, I do have a drink of the film. And it was unfortunate because on the first time I watched this movie, I had remembered in my mind that it was an apple pie she made, which seems like it would fitted exactly with the trad life.
Classic American apple pie.
Exactly. I think it's a cherry pie. It is the most disgusting looking pie I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, it looks like meat. Yeah. Like raw meat.
It's also so fucking flat. Yeah. It is the shallowest pie I've ever seen in my life.
And yet it also looks like it's been left out in the rain. It looks sopping wet.
And then Emily takes a bite and she goes, butter, right? And I'm like, what a fucking white bitch thing to say.
You made the pie. And she's like, oh my God, this pie is so good. Like, oh God.
Woo woo, next stop my thighs.
There's probably some intern. They're like, please bake me a pie. And they're like, hi, here you go.
It's a PA's pie for sure.
I try.
That looked like a Walmart bakery special.
Anyway, I tried to do my best to get a cherry pie flavored drink, but I came back to something that I still think is appropriate for the movie. I think apple pie is more in line of what this whole lifestyle would be like propping up, like baseball, apple pie, country music.
Sure.
And I thought if nothing else...
Scarecrow in the Field. It's that Bo Burnham country music song.
But I also thought moonshine is probably more closely associated with... the South and things like that. So I got the tiniest, cutest little bottle of apple pie moonshine.
Oh, that stuff's good.
It is good. And it's 12:30 where I'm at. So I'm going to indulge a little bit. And Priscilla also is joining me, but I don't know if she's going to be actually drinking, but she got...
I have one, but I had a bad time last weekend, so I don't know.
Priscilla got so fucking hammered in Los Angeles.
I have banana pudding.
Yeah, she got banana pudding wine, yeah.
This is a good time to talk about Dustin and I did our Show Guys live stream 2 nights ago, and I was hungover the next day. I have not had a hangover in a very long time, but I got slamma-jammed watching that movie.
I think we both I went through a bottle of champagne, you went through a bottle of wine, was that right?
Yep.
Wow, I thought you were going to share. You had none left over.
I sure did.
Dude, I chimed in at different parts of the movie and I just saw the progression. Like I heard you were saying like, this is like my 6th glass of champagne or something. And I'm like, okay, good. They're having a good time. That's cool.
I'm looking forward to rewatching the video of that because I feel like at the beginning we were actually like talking about what's on screen. And by the end of the movie, we're like, you guys, like Ninja Turtles 2 when the Shredder does this?
Smoking is so cool.
Smoking's cool. Ninja Turtles 2 rules. Yeah. It was a fun time. If you missed it, I'm sorry to say you missed out. And next time, be more proactive. Come watch with us.
That's right.
Cool. Okay, so let's roll the trailer, which I have not seen. I am curious how they marketed this thing because I don't remember seeing or hearing anything about this thing until I saw that TikTok clip. So
yeah, I had not heard about it till it was on the schedule.
Gotcha. All right, well, let's see.
I am really, really happy that we are finally doing this. Today, I just want us to introduce ourselves, get to know each other. There's no agenda.
The back of her jacket, by the way, is German for loves to hate.
Yep.
I'm a teacher down at the school, and everything thus far has been a step in the right direction in the magazine, but we want to be careful with this first issue, right? We want to engage the mainstream, right? We can't come on too strong, okay? Soft on the outside, so vigorous ideas can be digested more easily. Now, we are the best secret weapon that no one checks at the door because we tread quietly.
There's a title, I guess.
There you go. Yeah, I could see seeing this trailer in the theater and being like, what am I watching?
It's a well-made trailer, I'll tell you that.
It's really good. We're not seeing any of the violence, we're just seeing pull quotes from reviews. Wow. And them trying to clean up.
Wow.
That was a really good trailer.
Yeah. That's a hell of a trailer. Yeah. I can see people being like, well, I guess I'll check that out when it's on DVD. Oops.
Yep.
No whole media release.
Yep. My first question, and it's kind of rhetorical, but I guess we can probably discuss it. To me, I think the answer is...
Think carefully about whatever you're going to say.
Is this whole episode is going to be a lot of pregnant pauses.
It's going to be my asshole clenched for most of the time. But this is a softball question. Is this the best Blumhouse movie?
Oh, interesting. Because I mean, maybe. My first note is that the Blumhouse fanfare seems weird in front of some movies. Like, seeing a creepy chair spinning around and Michael Myers in the woods does not prepare you for this movie.
Especially if you don't know what the movie's about. You're probably thinking, okay, I'm getting some low-budget, campy, almost probably, fun horror movie.
Sure.
I didn't even realize it was a Blumhouse until just now.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where it was, it played at the festival and then Blumhouse picked it up because this is such a low tier thing that it's easy for them to just pick it up, put it out, and they don't even have to worry about it. But
sure.
I do feel like maybe they should have marketed a little bit, like anything.
I mean, I would say, because I'm looking at Blumhouse's, Blumhouse produced films, and there's some other kind of off the beaten track movies that they've put out. I mean, I'd put Whiplash and Black Klansman up there as best Blumhouse movies.
That's true.
Even though they're not technically what you'd think of as a Blumhouse film.
It's like when A24 first started out and they had like that Charlie Sheen movie and they did the Bling Ring.
Right.
Like, what is the studio? What do you guys stand for? And now,
what's your deal?
Yeah, and now it's kind of a brand recognition thing.
Right.
But,
you probably won't see the soft and quiet haunted house at Universal Islands of Adventure.
That would be wild. A Halloween Horror Nights, soft and quiet style.
Ugh.
That would be wild. I guess let's briefly just kind of discuss what the movie is, because it is very easy to describe what the plot is. So It's a elementary school teacher who has set up this meeting with local women who are white women and they feel like they're disenfranchised. And it's essentially like, what if a KKK meeting was like a diet KKK meeting? And then it blows up into they assault this pair of Asian American sisters, kill one of them, seemingly kill the other one, try to dump the bodies. And I will go ahead and give you a caveat that one of the girls does live. So there is a little bit of hope at the end of this movie. It's not entirely dour, but the implication is pretty strong.
Yeah.
But I will say too, some of the subtext here is there's a backstory that Emily, our lead character, I guess you can call her the protagonist,
sure,
had a brother who sexually assaulted one of these two sisters, went to jail for it, and now it's kind of a unfortunate circumstance of events that happen, that transpire, where they run into one another and then they decide to attack these two sisters. We'll get into it as we go along with the plot, but that's kind of the rub of this thing.
Yes. But the movie opens with the world's quickest pregnancy test.
Thank you. I said the same thing, and Priscilla was like, "No, it's fine."
There are rapid ones, but I don't know.
I mean, sometimes they're quick.
Yeah,
but
you got to piss extra hard though.
I told Dustin we got to take a moment here to do a PSA.
Yeah.
Take your fucking birth control
yes.
right now. Get up, go, do it now.
Before it's gone forever. Ugh. Take your birth control, stockpile that shit.
Thanks for reminding me.
You're welcome.
But I just thought it was funny because like it's such a quick pregnancy test. It's like 4 seconds and she starts crying. And I'm like, when it's revealed that she's at an elementary school and she's taking a pregnancy test and she's upset because it's negative, not positive.
Right. Well, we thought, like, I always thought it was positive until like the second watch. I don't know why, but I was just like, because, but now it's good. It's good. It's negative.
Very rarely do you see a movie where a woman takes a pregnancy test and cries and it's because it's negative. Usually it's like, oh shit, that was a mistake or something like that. So to see it
because her whole goal is to build the Aryan Brotherhood with as many babies as possible, that this is seen as a failure on her part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a term for this. I like to call it least common denominator dumb, where like the thought process behind people like this is so simple-minded that it's a mystery to me why they think it would work, but then I remember it's least common denominator.
And the thing that's so fascinating about this character, and all of these characters, they see what they're doing as some kind of holy mission, and they're so proud of themselves for figuring it out and plotting it all out. But whenever they actually have to explain it to someone else, it literally boils down to we're going to be good housekeepers and we're going to have a lot of babies, and then that's going to change the world to our point of view. It's when they have to boil it down, they sound so naive, and then they also just have no control over the situation at any time, even though they're convinced that they're the superior race.
There's so many contradictions that happen between what a character says and then what immediately follows it up with. But the meeting that happens, which is kind of the bulk of the movie, I feel like in the first act, is these characters all kind of are timid. Right. They don't know how safe these other women are in terms of expressing how they really feel. And there's kind of this ideology of, if you're around someone and they make a racist joke or they make a sexist joke, the way to combat it is not to appease them by laughing softly. It's not to appease them by calling them out aggressively. You just go, I don't understand. What do you mean? Explain the joke.
Yes.
And then that's when they start to backpedal of like, they never can just come out and...
or the fact that, like, how do you feel comfortable enough, like, saying this to me? Yes. The audacity.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you can feel them, you can feel the line moving during the meeting, where they're just like trying to feel each other out. How far can I go? I mean, first you're introduced to Leslie, who doesn't even want to, who we come to see as the most aggressive and probably the most evil of all of these women.
Probably.
Who doesn't even want to engage at the beginning because she doesn't know Emily called the meeting. So she's not even going to like look at her or talk to her. And when we meet Marjorie, she starts off by saying, first of all, I don't hate anybody. Here's just how I feel. And then the third thing she says is, these brown kids. Yep. Like she once she has permission, then she starts going into the rhetoric.
That's such like a trope, but it is reality of people when it's such an echo chamber of things like, well, I don't hate anyone. Let's be clear. Like, I don't have a problem with
they all keep saying that. They're like, look, not to be, too ridiculous or out there, but, and then they say a horrible thing and everyone's like, no, you're absolutely right, honey. Yeah. Like it's always 5 racist bitches saying exactly to each other.
And I also think it's important that this movie mostly focuses on women.
Yeah.
Right? Because like typically if you think about like a racist ideology, you do think of Klansmen in the roads, burning crosses, things like that. You think typically of males being the most aggressive of of these two genders in terms of.
I should throw out. I realize I just used the word bitches, and that was a reference to a meme. Sure. That is not how I talk about women. I just want to be very, very clear.
No, this is progress we're making here. We're making progress. But no, it is. You typically think about the male being the most aggressive of the two sexes when it comes to this kind of hate crimes. But I think it's fascinating that the one male character in the movie that's on screen is the one that is the most level-headed, the most reasonable, the one that's like, this is a terrible idea, the one that dips out before any real crimes take place.
Right.
I mean, that was my note. I was like, how does the man have like the better idea here? Yeah. I do not understand.
Yeah.
Well, and she keeps the upper hand by emasculating him
constantly,
which is the thing that she keeps saying other people are doing to their to quote unquote their men.
Yes.
It's not very trad wife of her.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
The hypocrisy is like wall to wall in this movie.
She also quotes a Bible verse that I was not familiar with just by the name alone, but when I looked it up, it says basically a woman should be subservient to her husband, and yet she constantly, as you said, is emasculating him. So it's this thing that I hate so much, which is the weaponizing of religion.
Yes.
Because Priscilla and I constantly have this debate, and Priscilla, please correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not going to say anything out of school here, but you are very anti-religion.
Yes.
And I'm not. What I am is I'm anti-weaponizing of religion, because I understand what people get out of the Bible. There is some good stuff in there, for sure.
You mean like throwing rocks at women to read books?
No, not that.
Favorite.
Not that. But there is what it's supposed to do. And again, it's been weaponized by man and man's agenda. The golden rule is all you really need to take from the Bible itself, right? Treat others as you want to be treated.
It's like, don't be a piece of shit.
Exactly. That's all it really says. Is don't be a dick.
But I feel like religion is very good at reading between the lines.
It is.
Or not reading between the lines, I guess.
Yeah.
Both. And I mean, I think I've talked about this on the show before, but like I grew up Southern Baptist, and at some point I felt like everything that was being said to me was counter to the message of love that I was supposed to be getting from it, right? Like being told that my queer friends were deviants and pedophiles when they weren't, and being told that there was no difference between two men dating and a man having sex with a dog, like literally having a Sunday school teacher say that to me at 15 years old turned me away, and also just the cliquish nature, hearing a deacon call another person in the church a slur, like just all of these things. I was like, this doesn't compute, this doesn't add up. What are you people doing? It always came back to a feeling of you're just sort of trying to make yourself feel better about the way that you live your life and giving yourself this sense of moral superiority. And that definitely comes through in this movie, the picking and choosing.
Yes.
Of when to do unto others versus turning the other cheek.
My favorite example of that is she quotes a Bible verse which tells you, at least it's trying to tell you, she is of the religious faith, of the Christian faith.
Right.
And then what does she do? She immediately fucks over the pastor who owns this church where they're having the meeting by saying, don't clean up after yourselves, leave the trash, fuck it, we're leaving.
They have help.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it always keeps coming back to, especially in this meeting, the idea that all of them are kind of fooling themselves when they act like they have no agenda. I mean, Emily, literally, her first thing is, there's no agenda here today.
Yep.
We are here to support each other in this multicultural warfare.
And here's the agenda.
Right.
And let's write it down on the dry erase board.
Right.
But I guess to further expand on what I was trying to get across was,
yes,
I feel like if you take, it could be any religion, most of them, it boils down to, just treat others nicely, help out those in need. And the logic leaps that people will do in order to defend their bullshit and their shitty behavior is the most infuriating part, because you can turn on the news at any given time and see some pundit espouse, this kind of rhetoric, and then they'll back it up with saying, I'm just asking questions. Right. I'm not actually saying these things. which is like, again, the least common denominator dumb bullshit that I fucking hate, because you are espousing it. You're on or the people that say I'm canceled and then go on to have like their own TV show. You know what I mean?
I was literally just talking about Louis C.K. the other night, a guy who has gotten multiple specials where he talks about cancel culture, and I'm like, you are literally getting paid to prove that does not exist in the form that you say it is.
I feel like comedians are always excluded, though.
It feels that way.
They're excluded from that conversation typically, yeah. But like, I mean, like, yeah, Ellen DeGeneres said the same thing. Oh, they canceled me. You had the biggest special on Netflix like 2 months ago. Like, you're not canceled. If you're rich, you're never canceled.
Well, and this movie gives us that with characters like Jessica, who sort of leaves the movie after a little bit, but she says, I'm not here to yell, quote, lynch them all, you know, but she does. Yeah. That's what you just said. Like, that's absolutely what you're saying.
Yeah.
Kim brags about her journalism degree and then talks about how she has no opportunities because the media is run by ethnic groups. And it's like, no, you're bitching about a system that you benefit from.
Yes.
It's so sad. You have such a nice education and you treat it like this.
Right. But absolutely.
It's just... there is a reason I feel like it. It's not to sound snooty, but there is a reason I feel like that. If you look at electoral maps, that you can see that cities and towns that have colleges or institutes for education typically are the ones that are the most left-leaning.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's because you are forced to engage in peer groups that you might not be familiar with, especially if you go to school out of town, or topics that you were coddled around as a youth. Mm-hmm. Like, I also cut myself off from religion very early on in my teens because, as you said, Nathan, I saw the hypocrisy of, I know that my family is filled with just assholes that will just hide behind the church as an excuse because their favorite thing to say is, well, only God can judge me. Okay, well, you're here on earth.
Then stop doing it yourself.
Yeah, then why do we have police? Why do we have judges? Sure. You can be judged 100% on this planet. And it got so bad, and I mean, it's not the only reason, but one of the main reasons I cut my entire family off, except for my niece this year,
right?
Or I guess in 2024, this was one of the reasons why, because I could see the religious hypocrisy, I could see the racism. I mean, not to call it specific family members, but they would always use slurs that I was just like, I have friends that are like this. You've met them. You were nice to them. What is this hypocrisy?
Racism is a poison.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
It's very similar. I grew up in a very rural town in Florida.
Sure.
And everybody I grew up was very racist, very like proud to be like racist. Ugh. And I didn't turn out that way, which makes me think it truly is like a choice not like, because people will hide behind, well, that's how I was raised.
That's not an excuse. That's never an excuse.
No, absolutely. And you also like, you have opportunities to meet other people and engage with other conversations and viewpoints outside of yourself. And we see what happens when the echo chamber continues, because in one of the craziest lines in the movie, Leslie during the opening meeting says, when I was in prison, I met people who really got my head straight.
Yep.
And like, it's like, oh, okay, wow. Those are the guys that helped you see the light.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. And yeah, I feel like the echo chamber is the worst thing because like, it's not so much that you have to engage with any topic that you're interested in. Like, I don't expect anyone that watches this movie to walk away with any sort of ideology change. I think the people that are going to watch this movie already have in their head what they believe in. Sure. I don't know if this is going to change anyone's mind, but I do think it's important for stuff like this to exist to confront that type of logic.
Sure.
But it is fascinating how quickly, you know, the characters of this movie that exist in the real world will fall back on. They have a line of defense for everything, essentially.
Oh, I mean, it's suggested that they shouldn't have a paper trail for the meeting. And
I know.
And Emily immediately snaps and is just like, why? We're not doing anything wrong. We're just talking.
We're just asking questions. That's all we're doing.
Right.
Yeah. It's my least favorite sentence to hear is I'm just asking questions. That's it.
Yeah.
And I just wish if you're going to be racist, just own it.
Boy, what a good...
You know what I mean?
Okay.
No, because look, we're not going to cut out racism by having this conversation on this episode. Absolutely. And this movie's not going to end racism.
Are you sure? We're not going to, like, the Silver Linings playlist isn't going to end racism?
Yeah, you're right. No, my whole point was just that, like, the people that say that I'm proud to be racist, and then whenever you confront them about it, they immediately backpedal.
Right.
Like, that's the shit that infuriates me. Like, if you're going to say you're proud of it,
they try to make excuses for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, if you're going to do it, just fucking own up to it. And
no, absolutely. And that's one of the things this movie excels at, is showing the inherent cowardice in this kind of ideology.
Exactly. Every single character in this movie, other than I would say the two sisters that are the recipients of the hate crime, are cowards.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
But I guess let's move along, because we do have to keep going along in this plot. But so if you have seen the movie before and you're watching again like we have, the reveal that the teacher Emily here shows this student what is under the aluminum foil, the pie that I guess we haven't said yet, has a swastika carved into it. And to see that kid doesn't say anything, because of course he shouldn't even know what a swastika is at this point.
He just says something like, that looks good, or something like that, right?
Yeah. He's like, wow.
Yeah, because it's just a fucking pie.
Yeah.
To him.
This goes to a point that I want to bring up, and we don't have to spend too much time on it, but it is important to talk about, which is one of the big things that the alt-right is guilty of is accusing the left of grooming, right?
Sure.
That's all they want to talk about with the drag shows, with anything, critical race theory, anything like that. They're like, they're grooming our children to, hate themselves, which is what Emily talks about. I'm sick of feeling ashamed of my heritage. But what do they do all throughout this movie is she teaches this kid what a swastika is and to not have any fear of it, clearly.
Yeah.
She teaches him to be anti this, minority janitor that they have, which is a fucking term I hate using, but it is literally the political correct way, I guess, to say it.
Well, and she keeps saying things like it's best to work with kindergartners because they're easier to mold. I mean, like, this is how children are radicalized.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And the fact that, like, she tells both the kid and the mom, like, little Jimmy here could have slipped, and the janitor hadn't even started yet.
It still would have been little Jimmy's fault.
Yes.
Right.
So
they love to be upset about a thing they made up.
That is a huge thing, of like that meme of the two kids cowering in the corner, and then it says something
from the bunny.
Yeah, because something conservative's just made up.
Yeah. A lot of good meme talk in this episode.
Lots of good meme talk. There's the opening credits, which are Emily's walk through the woods from the school to this church. It said, I don't know if you noticed this, Nathan, but one of the production companies was called a second grade teacher film production.
I saw that.
That's a bit on the nose, don't you think?
Fascinating. I was too distracted because Jeff calls from the prison, and it sounds like he's rocking out.
Yeah.
Like there's like heavy metal playing in the background.
Have you seen some of these TikToks of these people in prison?
Yeah.
They are having a good time.
Yeah. Oh boy.
And then she runs into Leslie. They realize they're both heading to the same meeting. And then Leslie and her get real chummy really quickly. And if I just met you less than 5 minutes ago, do not be elbowing me in the ribs. Right. I don't want you touching me. I don't know who you are. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And then Leslie's, Emily relates to Leslie, I'm a teacher down at the elementary school. And she goes, oh, you're a teacher. You must be like really smart. And I'm like, apparently not.
And Emily says, yeah.
Yeah. She just kind of shrugs it off. And then, that's when we get the pie reveal, which I think it's really great of how long they hold on that pie.
We hear one person ask, like, is this for real? And everyone is just like, oh, everybody's just too touchy these days. You can't even make a joke anymore, which is like exactly how these people work.
Yeah.
Oh, Kathy.
One of my favorite lines from Hot Rod. But someone says, why is everyone so serious all the time? Right. I was like, is someone here the Joker? Talk about a through line through this season.
Boy,
we're just doing it.
We're just connecting the dots.
And Emily bites into the pie that looks disgusting and compliments herself. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
And then, the line that I love to hate, which is anytime, and it's not in this movie, I don't believe, but anytime anyone brings up the rebel flag and they say, I'm just representing my heritage. I'm like, your heritage of what? Right. What is the heritage? Oh, and strong, proud, working people, they made themselves out of nothing. Okay, sure. What you're really saying is, I liked the fact that South went to civil war over the rights. My favorite also, too, is The Civil War is not about slavery. It was about states' rights. And then you follow that up with one question, which is
what were the rights?
Yeah, what rights? What rights in particular?
Yep.
And yeah, I found it brave that Emily starts espouting this rhetoric. So this group of women that she seemingly has an idea of what they believe, but to just announce that you're a teacher, I thought was kind of brave.
And that she's, written down the name of this group that she wants to start. The what was it? The
Daughters of Aryan Unity.
Ugh.
Yep. Well, yeah, no, it's real brave. Like she talks about not leaving a paper trail, but then this is the trail that leads to the pastor finding them. But yeah, we haven't really talked about this, but this whole movie is essentially filmed as if it's a oneer, like it's kind of a one crazy night kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's also really smart in terms of not only the production, but getting the reactions from these characters, because as Emily's spouting all of this nonsense, we hold on her for a long time, and yet we hear these other characters responding to her, and it's very unsettling to not see the other women, because it's kind of like you said, like we're snowballing this thing. Like,
yes,
Emily kind of says a little bit of how she believes, and then Marjorie says a little bit more, and we're just kind of rolling that out further and further.
And it gets to the point where, and all of them are kind of tentative, right? Like Marjorie's first question is, nobody's going to post about this, right? Like I don't want to put this on Facebook.
That's what I mean by the pride thing of like, if you're going to do this shit, just be proud about it, post about it, fuck it.
It's great. And yeah, like you said, this movie was shot over the course of 4 evenings, and they basically shot the entire film in sequence and edited together the best takes.
Yeah.
The cuts are seamless.
Yeah.
And apparently most of the film, as we see it, was shot the 4th night.
Yep. It's smart from a production point, because why do you need to do all the reaction shots? Why do you need to do all the close-ups, the B-roll? Just live in the world with these women for a little bit.
Which makes it feel more eerie.
It
does.
Exactly.
Feel like.
Absolutely.
It's more claustrophobic. I can't leave. I can't get an establishing shot. I can't get away from these women. You know what I mean?
I have seen some negative reviews that point out that that argue that this prevents us from getting to interrogate them a little closer. Like, we don't really see their interior life. We just see the front they put up for each other. But I think that's purposeful, because again, the movie shows how quickly this stuff deteriorates.
Yeah.
And there's still the little microaggressions that are sprinkled throughout that then fully explode at the end of the movie.
You can also extrapolate what these women's home lives are just from their dialogue. Like, we know that Kim has a bunch of kids. She drives a minivan.
Mm-hmm.
We know that Emily's got a brother in jail for assaulting a woman, and we see her demean her husband constantly.
My favorite is when I think it's Marjorie says to Kim, like, I know you're friends with like every cop that comes in here, which is like such a smart throwaway line.
Yep. And then, as they're talking, I think one of the characters is like ashamed of like kind of the rhetoric that they're spouting, at least to an extent. And I think it's Emily that says, our Constitution was designed to protect you.
Yeah.
And the takeaway I had was, women, not to put a damper on your conversation, but you guys technically didn't even really have rights until the 20s.
Right.
Wait, is she talking about the same Constitution that like 14-year-old boys made and signed?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Bunch of teenage dudes in the 70s were trying to write,
In the 70s?
In the 70s?
17.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Oh, if I say the 70s, that's always the decade I'm talking about.
Oh, all right.
The ye old summer of love.
But no, like, I just thought that was crazy. Like, that's how short the memories are of like, and Priscilla, I think you probably know this. Wasn't it not until the 80s that a woman could even have a credit card in her own name?
I believe so. It might have been like 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
But I know it was like bank account, and then shortly after were like credit cards, or your husband had to sign for you to get a credit card.
It's the pulling up the ladder, you know, like, I got mine, fuck you mentality.
Right.
Like, I can't relate to it at all. So this is a fascinating movie for me to watch. And then, one of the women say that there's nothing left in this country for me. And I'm just like, you say, with a full stomach, clothes on your back, all the opportunities in the world.
Right.
Like, you're here having this lovely meeting with these desserts and everything. Like, I don't know. I think Marjorie's only problem was that she didn't get a promotion at work. That was her entire basis for why she feels
right. And she's talking about how she was told that this other person was promoted based on their leadership skills, and she talks about it being like an affirmative action thing, and everyone else murmurs in agreement, like absolutely. They don't know a fucking thing about Marjorie. They've never seen her at work. They don't know if she's good at her job. They just know that she's white.
Yep.
And they asked her, they were like, well, did she stick up for you and not take the promotion? Who the fuck does that?
Who would ever do that?
Who's gonna say no?
Well, I mean, it's always these false equivalencies. I mean, they attack the two Asian girls at the supermarket, and then when they fight back, they're like, how dare you put a hand on me? And it's like, you hit them and called them a slur.
That's the most infuriating part.
It's victim mentality.
Yes.
The victimhood, I wrote that down. The pearl clutching victimhood in this movie is off the charts.
Yes.
But no, that is a fascinating and also infuriating concept of like, whenever one of I'm gonna get a little political here. Well, one of Trump's one of Trump's big policies was he was going to do a mass deportation, right?
Yeah.
And no one wants to question, like, I'll give you a good example. I can't remember when it was specifically, but I remember there was something in the first term that he had where it was a huge racial thing that happened.
Yeah.
And at I don't want to say the name of the restaurant, but there was a chain restaurant in my hometown that everyone in town knew that there was a lot of undocumented workers working in the kitchen, and on the front-facing side of things, the front of house was all your like white teenagers and people like that. And when there was some kind of thing, we're going to boycott this chain because of this racial thing that happened. A line out the door.
Yeah.
Right. People flocked to this restaurant, even though there was a boycott being called for. And that was the part that was infuriating to me, was like, you want these people to do a job that you don't want to do, but you don't want them to have the rights and the benefits for doing that job. Right? That's the most infuriating part. And I don't want to sound like Kelly Osbourne on The View here, because I know I can see it. I can see you thinking about it. But like,
I was waiting for it to become that, but no, it is a thing where the hate comes first.
Yes.
And they don't think through anything else.
No. It is a fact that I think it's not the quote unquote immigrants, illegal immigrants, whatever you want to call them. It is not their fault that you lost your job. It is your boss's fault, if anything, right? Because like, if they're willing to hire someone that is willing to work for less than minimum wage, which is illegal, or even minimum wage, and instead will not hire you, that is not the person of color's fault. That is your cheapskate fucking...
Right.
I mean, look at the United Healthcare guy. Like, it's always the higher up, right? It's always those who you should be blaming for your inconvenience and your anger and your ire. No, I find it so fascinating that that's always the logic leap of, let me hate the person that's the most disenfranchised
let me blame the person who's on the bottom rung of the ladder.
Yeah, of the totem pole. Yeah, exactly. And then I found this fascinating. Priscilla was not familiar with the white power symbol, the OK sign.
Oh, sure.
I literally had to break it down. I was like, it's so fucking dumb. It is so goddamn lame.
It's like fucking finger Olympics over here.
I mean, it's like when it's like when you look up why the Proud Boys are named what they are. Every time you do research about these kind of people, you're like, oh, right, you're all so dumb.
So stupid.
I thought it was the sign that they do where they're like, and they fucking like kick you or whatever. That I got you.
What's this now?
She thought it was like the game, like you put it on your knee or whatever.
They were all doing that? Yeah.
I had to pause the movie like, no, it's even dumber than that. Let me explain it.
So I also didn't know that was the white power hand signal thing either.
Oh, okay.
I always thought that was okay, like when you, like a hand signal for A-OK.
It is, but then
I've been doing that this whole time.
It is that, but much like every other thing that the alt-right does is they co-opt it from something because they can't create it themselves. Just
they
like
have no imaginations.
Exactly. Just like Pepe the Frog got co-opted by the alt-right.
I was going to say the poor frog.
I know. If you haven't seen Phil's Bad Man or whatever that documentary was, it's heartbreaking. The guy that created Pepe the Frog, who seemed like a genuinely sweet guy.
Yeah.
It just has to deal with the fact that the alt-right co-opted his cartoon and used it for heinous shit.
Insane.
But it reminds me of that guy who infiltrated the KKK and he found out that all they do in their meetings is just come up with dumb handshakes.
Yes.
Like, that's literally it.
Yeah. A 3-hour meeting to come up with a new handshake.
It's so fucking lame. It's like when you, as kids, and you're trying to come up with your own language. Like, But you have even less imagination than that.
They're all in the Little Rascals He-Man Woman Haters Club.
Well, shit. I mean, they could be doing worse things in the 3-hour meeting.
That's very true.
I mean, if they're just doing handshakes, we're like, okay.
Yeah, let them.
just let them do handshakes.
I mean, it is kind of sad though, because I mean, as human beings, people are just like looking for connections, and the fact that they have to find connections though, and like hate.
Right.
So it's the easiest thing to find connections in is when you dislike somebody.
Yeah.
But it's just really sad that their IQs are just so low that they can't find anything else to like get along about.
It's lazy. I find racism and the likes to just be lazy because it requires you to do no cognitive function in your brain, like no thinking required.
It's just othering, and that's it.
And it's the easiest way is let me physically look at what is different from me versus this other person.
Right.
And it's the same with sexism as well. It's like, let me find the easiest thing to just be mad about.
Well, sexism is just because men are like intimidated by women.
Correct.
That's all it is.
Yes, it
100%.
Yeah. And I'm one of them. I am very intimidated by women.
Same.
Good. Stay that way.
And I also like that. I think it's Marjorie talks about the diversity or whatever, and then another character says it's like they're speaking in code when they talk about like diversity and things like that. And I'm like, you say that as you're throwing up the white power symbol. It just reeks of the I'm just asking questions facade of bullshit.
The rehearsals for this movie must have been insane. Like to break down when those little hand signals are going to go up. The blocking in this movie is a feat in itself.
Immaculate. It's immaculate. Yeah, I think I read that the director did kind of like circles every morning before they filmed again of like, let's check in with everybody. Is everyone doing okay? Like,
yeah, that's good.
She said a lot of tears were shed, including her own, during those moments. So
I believe it.
And then I forget the name of the woman that says she's a proud member of the lineage of KKK members. And
Jessica, yeah.
Says she's pregnant with number 5.
Jesus.
I was like, that's the most horrific thing that anyone has said so far is the 5th child on the way in this Aryan clan. Jesus Christ. That's also a fascinating concept, too, of like, we're just going to outnumber them by having more babies. Like, okay, all right. Oh, Priscilla, you actually mentioned this while we were watching, and I thought this was fascinating. They write on the whiteboard all their little plans of, we're going to have a newsletter and all this stuff. And you made a note about the handwriting.
Yeah.
Which is terrible on some of them.
So they do this thing called print script where they write some letters in print and some in cursive, like in the same words.
Yeah,
and it is a sign of being like a sociopath.
I had never heard of this, but I thought that was fascinating.
And it's commonly seen in serial killers.
Yeah.
This is just like the sun in the corner thing you were talking about, DC.
Yes, that's also Priscilla telling me about that.
Oh yeah. That's also me.
Yeah.
Like that's not a good sign. And they both wrote in it too. So it's not just one person.
Yeah, everyone that writes on the board does it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also thought there's no quicker way to turn me off from your agenda than mentioning a newsletter. Like, get the fuck out of here. I don't want to read your newsletter.
Sure. Unsubscribe.
Exactly.
They were like, should we include all the names and addresses of all of the people who are not white?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I think that's probably, before they actually run into the sisters, that's probably the biggest crime they commit.
It is.
It's just even pondering that idea.
It's the idea of doxing somebody.
Yes.
I do love that we don't see the pastor really come in. We just see Emily notice him as he's like stepping back out of the room.
Very good. And before that, though, I think it's Leslie who says, you should just make your own school, Emily. That's a great idea. And I was like,
just do it.
That's so fucking, again, it's just so dumb. Like, yeah, we'll just make a roll school.
It's that easy, sure.
But, well, you know what? It is that easy, depending on what state you live in.
That's yeah.
Technically.
Sure, but you still have to have some regulation. You can't just say, and even if you do open up your own school, and no accredited school is going to take your degree or your diploma. That was my thing of like, It's that Bender joke from Futurama of like, I'll open my own restaurant or whatever with blackjack and hookers.
Right.
Like, my own casino or whatever.
Well, I know here in Florida, so from what I know, like when I was in high school, I had like people I knew that went to like Christian academies and stuff. And you do not receive a high school diploma from these schools.
Right.
You have to go take a GED test. So like you could technically open a school, you just won't get like a public diploma.
So it's a waste of time, basically.
Yeah.
And I just wrote down, these women should just move to Oklahoma and all their dreams will be coming true, you know? Like, who just approved, I think, reading the Bible in schools, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. It's going to keep...
it's only going to get worse.
Yeah. I have a feeling that more will have jumped on that bandwagon by the time this episode releases.
It's just they keep espouting too that like they want traditional values. I'm like, aspiring to be a trad wife is such a goal to aim for. You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel like it's totally fine if that's what you want, as long as there's not like some backed up religion or hate behind it.
Sure.
Because you know what? We talk about this. We technically have like the nuclear family.
We do. I mean, I'm the breadwinner. You're mostly the stay-at-home mom, and we have one of each. We have a boy and a girl. So like it is funny to think that like we are the new wave nuclear family.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember which character says it, but one of them says, talking about all the diversity talk and all that, says like, I feel like I'm being brainwashed. Now here's my plan on how to brainwash people through our newsletter. Like, I just thought that was, again, the hypocrisy was out of control. So I guess let's get out of the church, because there's still so much movie to talk about. But Kim says, I have a grocery store, and the ladies are like, well, let's continue having this conversation. Let's go pick up some wine. And they go to her grocery store. It's closed. She lets them in. And Emily picks up, I noticed this, pasta, mayo, and wine. I'm like, what the fuck could you possibly be making with those things?
When she picked up the mayo, I lost my mind.
And it was a giant jug of mayo.
Huge.
Yeah, why was it so big?
I don't know. I thought maybe she was making a pasta salad or something. I didn't know.
Maybe.
I also want to point something out before we get too far.
Yeah.
That they were doing the salute in the parking lot.
Oh, yeah. And everyone's reaction is just sort of like, oh, you're so bad.
You're so silly. Yeah.
It makes my skin crawl.
Two of the women go home. They don't endure the rest of this movie.
They saved themselves.
They
sure
kind of did. They kind of did. So the two sisters come in. I think their names are Anne and Lily. Did I write that down?
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
They come in and Kim says, oh, the store's closed. And she goes, oh, I'm just trying to buy a bottle of wine, please. I'll buy the most expensive bottle of wine you have. I just got off work. I just want to go home and have a drink. And she says, the store is closed. And I want to say, the racism and aggression aside, if an owner tells you their store is closed, you got to leave. You got to just go.
Right.
It's unfortunate that they decided to then just pile on the racism and everything.
And here's my thing. Is it because they've just been, lathering each other up for the last 20 minutes or so? Because one of my big problems with the structure of this movie is, if this is how they go about their lives, how in the world has this not happened sooner?
Very
you know
true.
What I mean?
Very
like,
true.
They immediately go to the further, and I think it's because it's a pack mentality. Like, they're all egging each other on.
There's a reason I chose to release this episode on January 6th, Nathan.
Sure. No, I get it. But it is wild to think that, like, at any point, these women could have done this before now,
I think if Kim had not gone to that meeting, if this meeting never happened and she was still at her store, maybe she's counting the register, and Lily and Ann come and they say, hey, we know you're closed. We just want to buy a bottle of wine from you. We'll buy the most expensive bottle. She lets them in, no questions asked.
Sure.
I think you're right. It is the pack mentality. I think it's the fact that they felt emboldened because of a charismatic leader who came in and gave them the go-ahead to espouse their worst, instincts.
Well, and then it, and to Lily's credit, she's just like, fuck it, fine. I've got a bunch of cash. I just got off a waitressing shift. She even pays the $300 they ask for this wine.
Crazy.
And she says, like, whatever you think I am is how you're going to treat me.
Bingo.
Like
because the girls get into one another's faces. Like the girls from the meeting, Marjorie and Leslie, they start, just piling on the racial rhetoric of like, what even are you?
Yes.
And that's when I think it's Lily says, whatever you think I am is how you're going to treat me. And that's exactly it. That is 100% right. It doesn't matter if you even correct them. They don't care.
Yeah.
They just want to belittle you. So it's best to not even engage.
They're always looking for an excuse.
Yes.
I mean, she literally, Marjorie calls her a slur. Lily doesn't appreciate it. So Marjorie hits her.
Yeah.
And when Anne fights in her sister's defense, Marjorie is screaming, "Get off me!" And now they're all just like, "Wow, what's wrong with you?"
Do you see what happened? She came at me like an animal. Like it's exactly you push and poke and prod the bear, and when the bear attacks, you're like, I can't believe I was a victim of a bear attack.
Well, it's like the Central Park bird watching video.
Yes.
The thing that everyone latched onto is, why in the world, when this woman calls the police, does she keep saying over and over again, "There's an African American here"?
Yeah.
As though that's the headline.
Yeah.
Not, "I'm worried about my dog."
Yep.
Not,
yeah, lady, this is not the 30s.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Right. Yeah.
Can you believe it, officer?
That's what so many of those Karen, quote unquote, Karen phone calls loop back around to is, hey, there's someone in the neighborhood while black.
There's so many videos of people like that live in apartment buildings just trying to go home, and then like a white woman is just like, I don't recognize you, so I'm not letting you in.
I don't believe that you live here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why would you? There's been times where I've like never seen my neighbors.
Yeah.
You know, like, so of course.
Who could give a shit is my thing.
I
Like,
have absolutely no idea what any of my neighbors' names are. And I don't fucking care. I truly don't.
and I've met my neighbors and I barely remember their names. Like if it was put in a lineup, I might not be able to pick them out.
Yeah.
No, not absolutely.
Did you notice that there's a brand name blurred out in the store?
I
like
didn't.
they've used like a blur effect on it.
I did not.
It's weirdly distracting.
What was it? Could you make it out?
I couldn't tell, but I do know that the director played fast and loose with getting these locations.
Yes, they did.
They told the church that the film was about a woman's anguish over bringing a child into a world facing ecological collapse.
Yep.
And then they also told the principal of the school that they shot at that the film was about the challenges of teaching during COVID.
Yep.
Which, so in both places have been like, now we require to read a script before we allow anyone to film here.
I think it's also kind of reflective too about like, I'm sure when Emily booked the church to have the meeting, she wasn't exactly forthcoming about what her meeting was about.
Absolutely.
So I thought that was kind of interesting.
So, but if I had to guess, I would say it might just be the name of the grocery store that's blurred out.
Probably. And I do like that, like, you know, because at this point, we don't really know too much about any of these characters' backstories. But when Anne and Lily come in, they see Emily, and Anne says, "That's his sister."
Yeah.
And everyone's like, "Oh, what could that possibly mean?" And you see Emily just get incredibly stoic, like just shuts down.
Right.
And, you know, that's when they have their altercation. I love that Emily immediately starts bawling as soon as Lily reminds her that her brother is in prison for a woman.
For Anne,
exactly.
It's implied.
Yeah, she immediately starts bawling, and then Craig, her husband, comes in, and she's like the victimhood again. She's like, "Oh, these women were crazy. They attacked us.
Yeah.
Oh my god!" And then when he's like, "I don't know if I believe he did this."
Hey, come on, y'all. Like, relax.
Yeah.
I feel like this needs to be like counted as like mental illness.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like when you're that delusional, like, you know, that's like psychosis almost. With the fact that they're like, yeah, it's so sad, my brother.
And all of my problems are someone else's fault.
Yep.
Oh no.
And Craig tries to talk her down, and she keeps emasculating him, calling him slurs, talking about how he's like impotent, even though she blamed other cultures for this feeling earlier.
Yep. It's always someone else's problem. You're right.
And I gotta say, I think one of the best lines in the movie is when Emily is like, "Yeah, let's go after them. Let's teach them a lesson." And Kim says, "This is just like in high school."
I see some deep-seated trauma.
Yep. Yeah. And then I like that, you know, they're like, "Oh, I know where they live." And then Craig goes, "Why?"
Right.
And she goes, "Well, I'm keeping tabs on them." And he goes, "I find that disturbing."
It is disturbing.
It is 100% disturbing. Like, if your relative was convicted of raping someone and is now serving prison time,
yes,
I don't know if I would be wanting to keep tabs on the victim for malicious intent.
Right.
But they talk about we're gonna go fuck with them. We don't know what we're gonna do. And then they start jamming out to music on their way to committing a hate crime.
Well, I think they did slightly have an agenda.
Well, they said it's a practical joke we're gonna play, is what they said.
Somebody said shit in the tub, right?
Oh, they said they wanted to steal her passport.
They wanted to steal their passport. Yeah,
it's a flimsy excuse,
but it's also like, do you even know if their passport is like like a work visa or something, or is it for external use, leaving America? Like, they don't even care.
When they find the passport, they start using that as evidence that they don't belong there, as though other people can't travel abroad.
It makes no sense.
I was like, yeah, Americans have passports too.
Right. I have a passport. Yeah. And they're also, again, another way to show that everything's sort of cracking at the edges. They're still talking shit about Alice, who left the meeting earlier for accidentally spilling wine on Kim's jacket. Yep. They're like, yeah, she's clumsy. I don't think we can trust her. Like,
yep.
It's ridiculous.
And then, Craig says, if you guys are going to go do this, you cannot be in their house for more than 5 minutes.
Right.
And then they realize the girls aren't there. And Leslie says, well, if they're not even here, why do we only get 5 minutes? And I love that Craig looks to Emily and just goes, is she a good idea?
That's good. Yeah.
He's the only one that has any sort of like thought process on how this can go awry really quickly.
I also have to throw out the first thing they do is put a dog in a cabinet. And I'm just like, fuck these people.
Yep. They break into this house. They find the hide key.
Right.
They go in. They start looking around. Marjorie complains that there's a washer and dryer in this place.
I noted that too. I said, wow. They're like, oh, she doesn't deserve that. I was like, what the littlest thing.
The epitome of luxury in unit washer and dryer.
Yeah.
And then Craig comes back in because all they've done so far is they've broken a glass. They found their passport.
Yeah.
Marjorie plays the piano badly. And then Craig comes in and says, all right, we got to leave. It's been 5 minutes. And they goes, there's no way it's been 5 minutes. Lily starts approaching the house. Emily slaps Craig when he's proven right. And he then starts slapping himself even more. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
You could tell this is not a healthy relationship.
There's so many spackled holes in the wall of their house.
Yeah. Yep.
Empty Monster cans everywhere.
She knows not to come around on Monday nights when football is on.
That's right.
So Lily comes in. Craig, she realizes something's not right. She tries to run. Craig grabs her. And as he's grabbing her and dragging her back into the house, he is apologizing.
It's okay. I'm sorry. We're leaving.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He repeats over and over. He's the only one that has any sense of like character, even as he's contributing to this hate crime.
His performance is so good that it makes me sick to my stomach because he seems both terrified and angry and just like does not want to be there. You can see him leaving his body.
It feels genuine and like look, I may think similarly to how you women think, but I'm not
willing to go to jail over it.
Yeah.
No.
And that one woman has like a million kids in her soccer van.
Yeah. And she keeps saying, I will not go to jail. I have my kids. I can't lose my kids.
I was like, too late, lady.
I know.
I'm sorry, my van smells like a ball pit.
Yeah. And I'm just like, man, if you have a belief that you feel so strongly about, but you're not willing to like put up a fight for it and not willing to like go to jail for it, then it's not really a belief I feel like it's worth having. You know what I mean?
Right. And they're still trying to justify it, right? Like while Marjorie is still sort of dissociating and just saying over and over again, we're just joking around. These girls get so mad at the fact that the people they are kidnapping are fighting them.
Yes. She says this is all because you sassed us back.
Right.
Back being the key word in that sentence.
Being that we started it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, Craig goes, fuck this, I'm out. He starts to leave, and as he's leaving, he bumps into Anne, does the same thing, chases after her, drags her back in the house. The whole time he's going, I'm sorry.
Ugh.
This is just a joke. Basically, he drags her back in and says, I'm out, I'm done with this, and leaves.
Yeah.
And it was just, I found it odd and interesting that the man was the only one in this movie that seemed to have a conscience about this whole thing, because usually they're the ones that are the aggressors, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he doesn't want to be part of whatever's next.
Nope.
I truly...
Whatever's about to happen, I don't want to be here.
Yes. Well, you know what? I asked Dustin, I was like, technically, like, can women even be Nazis?
Yeah.
Like, because wasn't that all like just male soldiers?
They sure can, because the whole thing about the Nazi movement is that they don't think about other people. They don't think about the legitimacy of anything that they're saying. They don't, honestly, it always blows my mind. Is JT laughing because I said the thing about the Nazi party?
I think that was a yawn.
Oh, okay. No, but that's the thing that always blows my mind, is that they all act against their own best interests.
Yeah. Well, there was a hierarchy, right? It was like, we want the blonde hair, blue-eyed men to repopulate the race, as Hitler, who is a brown-haired, I think brown-eyed guy, was doing. And it was always like, well, first we get the Jews, then we get the gays, then the minorities. Like, they would work their way down. And I'm sure far enough down on that list was just plain old white women. Like, they're not...
And she's... Yeah, I mean, the characters are constantly contradicting themselves. Like I said, like they're all talking about male superiority and how we exist to prop them up.
Yes.
And then at every turn, Emily is, criticizing his masculinity. Yeah.
To your point, Priscilla, I don't know if you could technically label, like, let's say, like, the zone of interest, like the women that were involved with Nazi men. Right. I don't know if technically they would be labeled Nazis, but I would file them under, they're at least, if nothing else, Nazi sympathizers. And therefore...
I guess what I'm saying was Nazi more of like a label you got from being in like their military, or could it be just an idealization?
Well, there was like the Gestapo and...
It's more of a political affiliation. I don't think that women could be SS, but I think they could definitely be Nazis.
For sure. Absolutely. And then, the racist women tie up Lily and Anne and say, we got to scare the shit out of them. And I think you already did. Yeah. I think you did by breaking into their house.
But they're like, if we scare them enough, then they'll never talk about it. And we can just pretend this didn't happen, which, that's how everything's ever worked.
And then Kim escalates the problem even worse by pulling out a gun.
Oh my God, I know.
I will say, as it's something I always look for in a movie where someone has a gun, if the only good quality Kim has is that she actually has trigger discipline.
Side note. Yep. I knew you were going to mention that.
I had to. And then, Marjorie starts filming the fact that they've tied up these women. And I'm like, filming yourself committing a hate crime is pretty bold as well.
Yeah, that shit went straight to the clouds.
Yep.
Why is their first move to force feed Anne snacks with a gun to her head?
They don't have a plan. That's the thing I think is important. Is they don't know what they want to do, but they want to do something.
Right.
And that's when they're like, well, let's rub mayo in her hair.
It's humiliation.
It's humiliation. Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But then also, Emily's like, why the fuck would you film this?
Yes, exactly. Like, this is a good point why you don't just get involved with mob mentality, because some of these people, and most of them, are probably going to be dumb. Most people are dumb.
They have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
The thought is, I'm going to blackmail them with footage of me committing a crime.
Yes, exactly. And so they start, force feeding and trail mix and
spaghetti, I think.
Something like that, yeah. And then Anne starts having a seizure, which all the girls think she's just overreacting. It turns out Anne has a peanut allergy.
It's so upset because Anne is blurred in the background, and we just see Lily crying and pointing over to where Anne is as she's gradually seizing more and more.
Yeah, so there's a lot of chaos happening here. So essentially, they're blaring music, they're shouting, they're force-feeding the girls alcohol and peanuts, and they're just it's everyone talking over one another. It's intentionally like Uncut Gems tense, like tensity to it. And then, when Lily screams out she's got a peanut allergy, Emily tells Leslie, go find an EpiPen or whatever, and Leslie
purposefully takes her time,
nonchalant as hell, goes and gets the EpiPen. By that point, Anne has already died. Leslie comes back and goes, I found the EpiPen, but I guess it's a little too late for that.
Yeah.
And drops it on the floor.
We hold on Lily holding Anne while we hear them all freaking out in the background. And this is... Like, I stopped breathing a little bit. Like, this is one of the most gut-wrenching performances I've ever seen.
Yeah, the music cuts out, and then Lily just cradles her dead sister on the floor and has, like, a guttural moan about this whole thing. I mean, I think she's even fully forgotten that she's still in the presence of the women that committed this crime.
It sure seems that way, yeah.
And then the camera does something interesting. It pans over to Emily, who is watching all this happen. Lily dead, or Anne dead on the ground, and Leslie holding her, while Leslie gloats about it.
Yeah.
And for a split second, I feel like you get a bit of remorse in Emily's and in Emily's eyes. Like, there's a brief moment of like, we've gone too far.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's I'm remorseful for taking a life, or I'm scared that I'm going to get caught.
Yes. I think it's a little column A, little column B, probably more of the I don't want to get caught, because they immediately switch into, we got to clean this up.
Yeah.
And then Leslie says maybe the most horrific line of a movie I've heard in quite some time.
Yep.
And I'm sorry if you are going to be triggered by this line. I'll bleep it I'll censor it in the recording. But she says, we need to make it look like a and I just wrote down, holy shit, because I forgot that was a line in this movie.
Yeah.
And her logic is, because she tells Emily, women don't typically other women. So if we make it look like a sexual assault, they won't be looking for women. They'll be looking for men. It'll clear us up. and they violate Anne and I think Lily as well with some foreign objects.
What appears to be a carrot from the refrigerator.
Yes. And luckily it's mostly off screen.
We see Kim looking horrified while it happens. And Leslie reacts as though she's either done this before or heard about this being done. Because the way this isn't something you come up with this quickly.
No, not at all. And I found it interesting too, because then they're like, okay, well, we've gone too far at this point. We have to also kill Lily.
Right.
And Emily, who is our main character and touted herself at this meeting as being the biggest and baddest woman, has mostly been bawling her eyes out since they got into this house. Mm-hmm. And she can't bring herself to do anything that is considered tough in this situation. It's all a facade. She tells Leslie, I can't do this. And Leslie says, I'll do this for you. And kind of somewhat halfway off screen smothers Lily to death, potentially with a pillow.
She says, because Emily tells Leslie, you're so strong, like you can take care of this, right? And then and Leslie's like, I'll do it. And then you'll model my clothes for me.
Yes.
Like everything is transactional and so nonchalant for Leslie, rather.
I definitely felt sexual tension between them.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I think Leslie probably did have hard eyes for Emily.
They like start screaming at each other at some point, and I'm like, they're definitely going to kiss. Or they thought about it.
Or at least Leslie did, for sure. I don't know if it was reciprocated.
It's wild. And what do we make of the moment when all the sound cuts out?
I think that's, like I said, I think it's Emily, like her thoughts are reeling of like, I'm going to go to jail.
Yeah.
I've killed someone.
It was shock. It was probably like supposed to be shock.
It really took me by surprise.
Yeah. I think that's a brief moment of reprieve, not only from the movie itself, but for Emily to like process everything. And I think it's interesting too that, all the women just start screaming at one another.
Yes.
Like they all immediately turn on each other. They call each other stupid and, they blame one another for everything.
Kim, in the aftermath of Anne dying, Kim's big moment is to then tell Marjorie, you dressed like a whore for our meeting.
Yeah.
And like, it's just let me lash out about anything other than what the problem is right now.
Exactly.
The one issue I have with this sequence, just from a filmmaking standpoint, is that there is a lot of filling the space improv dialogue. There's a lot of like characters just kind of yelling like, this is how you learn, or you're a bitch, or in Emily's case, she's just saying, I gotta clean this, I'm gonna clean this. And I get that there's a lot of like panic and what do we do kind of vibes here, but some of it felt like, oh, I can't just let this be a silent moment.
Yeah, you didn't think it was honest portrayal about that stuff?
In a couple of moments, yeah.
Yeah. No, I kind of agree with that. I think it's also hard when you ask these white women to come on set with these Asian American women and say, just shout racial epithets at them. Like,
sure.
Especially when you have 4 days of filming. You probably still haven't built that rapport with them where you're like, listen, I'm sorry I have to do this, but it's the character.
I do think it's important that we don't see the suffocation. We don't see the violation here.
It's like halfway off screen. You kind of see it, but not really.
And then my next note is this dumb bitch scooping mayo into a bag with her hand.
Oh, yeah. I had to know. I was like, God damn it. She's cleaning up this mayo.
None of them saw Dexter, that's for sure. They don't know how to clean up a crime scene.
Oh, yeah. Like from a true crime lover.
Oh, please.
They did a horrible job trying to clean this up. This was so sloppy.
Oh, it's all sloppy. And I think that's intentional. I think it's to show you that, like, not only are these type of people dumb, but also just in the moment, they don't know what they want. They don't have an agenda in terms of the physical actions. But once things start rolling, it's clear that they are not as strong and powerful as they tout themselves to be. They're not as smart as they tout themselves to be. And I think it's important that this movie ends the way that it does, because they pile the women in the corpses into the back of Kim's minivan, and they say, I know of, there's a lake nearby, I have a boat, it's near this abandoned house, no one will see, it's nighttime at this point.
Right.
And their plan is to dump these women's bodies in a bag into the lake.
I had a note here as well. This is when, as they're leaving, the score kind of kicks back in.
Yeah.
And I almost think this movie would be more effective if the only music was diegetic.
Yep.
Like if there wasn't a score kind of telling us, okay, here's the tense part of the movie, because I got it.
I think that's one of the best things about No Country for Old Men is there is no score.
Right.
And it's all the tension comes from the silence. But what I was going to say is I think it's important that the movie ends the way it does because they dump these two corpses into the water, they paddle away, and then the last maybe 30 seconds of the movie is the fact that Lily is still alive.
Right. She fights her way to the surface. Yeah.
I think it's important that she's still alive at the end of this movie because if it ends with the two girls dead, thrown into the river,
and these people getting away with it,
even if you think they're going to get caught eventually, I think it doesn't have the same impact as knowing that, because it's not only the physicality of, oh, this girl's still alive, like they couldn't kill her. It also sends a message of, even if you try to bury these things, you commit these heinous acts, you have these strong racist beliefs, you're not going to kill the individual. I mean, you may kill one individual, but you're not going to kill an entire race. You're not going to kill this entire idea, their ideology or anything. So I think that's why it's important. And it is the only bit of levity and hope that I have in the movie is the fact that one of these women does live.
I mean, her life is ruined. But it seems she's poised to fight back.
Yes.
You know,
I mean,
in some way.
We know that her sister was not only assaulted by this woman's brother sexually, but then she herself was assaulted and killed. And now she was assaulted. You know, Lily was assaulted as well.
I also want to throw out one of the things that just really stuck out to me is they all leave. They've got these bodies in the trunk. And Emily goes back to the house to let the dog out of the cabinet because that's a valuable life to her.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of it really kind of shook me.
And it's a small dog too, intentionally. Like, I think it's a choice to have, like, I think it was even a Dachshund, like to have a specifically small dog. But yeah, that's how the film ends.
I will say I have a note that we did not go over.
Please.
That this just like wasn't very girl boss.
It sure wasn't. It was also.
It sure wasn't.
It was not very demure. No. It was not mindful.
Yeah, that's what I have too. Not very demure.
Not very calm. No, I thank you, Priscilla. We definitely needed that bit of levity.
You're welcome.
Was there any other notes that we didn't cover that you guys wanted to talk about before we get into wrap up stuff?
Yeah, I think this was all an elaborate ploy by the gap tooth girl.
By Leslie?
Yeah, because she was like, I miss my life in prison. She misses like basically the skinheads or whatever is in prison, the group, and she's like, yeah, let me just get more girls to commit more crimes. We all can go back and have a better community.
Right. I mean, by the end of this movie, you're like, oh, it totally makes sense that you were doing time.
I was like, oh, repeat offender.
Yeah. She also has a very Fairuza Balk in American History X kind of vibe to her.
Yeah.
So that maybe that was an homage to that too, like the way that character's dressed and everything.
She's one of the most aggro characters we've ever covered on this show.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, why don't we talk about actually some fun stuff?
Okay.
And not the actual content of the movie. Let's talk about Prop Cop. So, for new listeners of the show, Prop Cop is where the three of us, and JT, if he wants to get in on this, are going to pick one prop from the movie and keep for ourselves. And if you don't want to take anything, I fully get it. I'll go ahead and start first. I don't know what it was, but I kind of want that $300 bottle of wine. Whatever it is, it sounds good.
Sounds good. Maybe it's because I was just thinking about it, but I did pick the cabinet that they put the dog in because it does look like it would be a nice little record cabinet end table kind of situation.
All right.
It was tough, though, because I just wanted to get the fuck out of that house.
For sure. It was a nice apartment, too, or house, whatever it was. It was nice.
True.
Priscilla, you don't have to have one, but is there a prop from this movie? It could be wardrobe. It could be a tangible item. Is there anything from the movie you would like to own?
The piano.
That was my other one. Yeah, it was a nice little piano.
Yeah.
JT, anything?
What about the kayak?
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's do the kayak.
There you go. Well, there's not really many options, but I'm going to go ahead and try anyway. Is there any bit part that we should perform?
They must be destroyed on sight.
They sure must. I just wrote down, I guess the only person that's really an option is the janitor. Because I think everyone else has a speaking part in a name, but...
Yeah, if I may, I think all four of us should just be the pastor and the deacons coming upstairs to be like, hey guys, please end this meeting. Get the fuck out of here.
Please stop doing what you're doing. Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, I think if any movie so far this season needs one, it's this one. We need to talk about a silver lining. So... This was hard.
Yeah.
This one's very hard. I have two. Both of them start with hopefully.
Yeah.
But I'm eager to hear what you guys have, especially you, Nathan. This was your first watch. What silver lining do you have?
I mean, mine is probably the obvious one. Is hopefully Lily makes it back to shore, calls the police, and there is not only her own testimony, but there is video evidence, and these women are done.
I hope so. Yeah. Priscilla, do you have a silver lining?
I have two.
Okay.
So I have that they can be reunited with the other pieces of shit in prison.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a very interesting silver lining that we're talking about Leslie and the like they're going to be reunited.
Wait, well, I have another one. Okay. And then I also put that maybe if they're in prison for like the rest of their life, maybe they'll get an education.
Very true.
Okay.
I mean, that happened to Edward Norton in American History X. There you go. JT, do you have a silver lining?
Well, hopefully the dog's taken care of.
Yes, I think the dog lives.
Boomer lives.
Yeah, I mean, the dog is in the house alone. Who knows how long it'll be alone, but I don't
think it'll be too long. I think Lily goes right to the police. So hopefully that line about Kim having the police.
Yeah, I was about to say the police friend. It's stressful.
That could also just be an exaggeration as well, because hopefully what I would like to believe is, the police know her, but that doesn't mean they're going to help her cover up a hate crime. Right. That's what I would like to think. But then again, they are police, and this is an ACAB podcast.
Well, the brother also went to jail.
Yeah. True. That's very true.
For assault.
Very true.
So it's not like they're racist.
Which is actually pretty surprising.
Yeah.
Because usually men don't go to jail, prison for.
Yeah.
I mean, they should.
They absolutely. And then, the only one that I have left, because you guys kind of took the ones I had, was I'm going back to the little kid at the beginning, Brian. I wrote, hopefully Brian told his mom about the funny shape he saw in the pie.
There you go, right.
That Miss Emily showed to him, because I feel like the mom that she talks to, because she's like, oh, thank you for, potentially saving my kid from maybe slipping on a wet floor. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I feel about that mom, because she also says you're going to make a great mom.
Yeah.
And then that's when Emily kind of stifles some tears knowing that she's not pregnant.
Right.
I don't know. But I hope that Brian, because he seemed very innocent in all of this. So there you go. Well, let's say this. If nothing else, we definitely needed a movie to watch after Soft and Quiet, because this movie's pretty dour. So let's talk about a pick-me-up. So what is a movie people should watch after Soft and Quiet if it left them in a bad state of things? I got a couple choices, but I'm eager to hear what you guys have. Nathan, how about you start?
I have two, if that's all right.
Of course.
One is a classic comedy in which a ton of Nazis get their comeuppance in a hilarious pileup, but the Blues Brothers would be one I would recommend.
All right.
And if you want something way more cathartic, another 2022 film in which Nazis get blown up, shot up, punched up. Let's go watch Cissy together, everybody.
Oh, yeah. What a fun movie that was.
The movie rules.
It was awesome. Okay, Priscilla, do you have a pick-me-up?
Oh, I do.
Oh, please. I'm eager to hear.
Well, since these people clearly want to feel like a sense of community and like family, it's only appropriate that I feel like you know what I'm going to say.
My butthole is so clenched. I want to hear that. Please go ahead.
Harry and the Hendersons.
Of course. Of course. Priscilla has been demanding we cover Harry and the Hendersons on the show. At this point, I think it's got to be a commentary. I don't think we can just do a regular episode.
I think I've been mentioning this since the very beginning of this podcast.
I don't even think this is the first time it's been recommended as a double feat.
No.
Did you bring it up last time?
Yeah. I bring it up every single time.
That's what I thought. That's so funny.
JT, do you have a pick-me-up?
I didn't have one prepared, but
okay.
I guess we'll say since the pie reveal in this movie kind of showed what this movie was going to be about, because up until then, you had no idea. So in that spirit, I'm going to say American Pie.
Of course. I feel like that had to be somebody's choice.
Oh, boy.
Another problematic film if you look at it through today's lens. I wrote down a couple. I'll tell you which one is officially my choice, but the first one, and it's exactly what I hope happens to these characters, is Die Hard to go along with Soft and Quiet. And then also keeping in line with the Hard Train.
Oh, good.
A movie A movie I watched that I did not have any expectations for, but I quite liked. I had a good time with it. Another hard movie, No Hard Feelings.
Oh, yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence. It was a fun little movie.
Boo.
Again, also a little problematic, but had a good time with that.
I never got around to seeing that one.
It's okay.
Don't do it.
Oh, well, we're going to have differing opinions on it. I think Jennifer Lawrence is fearless in her performances, and that movie as well. I think she does some stuff that a lot of actresses would not be willing to do in that movie. But the movie I'm actually going to go with, and it's another movie about dumb racist people getting the shit kicked out of them by a minority specifically. I'm going with Django Unchained.
Yeah, great choice.
Love that.
I'm surprised. I thought you were going to say Inglourious Basterds.
I love Inglourious Basterds, and that's also equally a movie if you really want to watch the Nazis get the shit kicked out of them.
It's equally a movie.
It is a movie. It's not a video. But Django, I feel like, is one that I don't get to recommend enough, and I do feel like it's kind of one of the more slept on Tarantinos. So we just talked about him last week with Battle Royale. So I thought this is a good tie-in. So there you go.
Just go watch fucking one of my movies. That's my Tarantino impression.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
It's a little more Jay Leno.
It is a little Jay Leno. Have you heard about these Nazis? There you go. That's some good choices for some double features. So lastly, and I know this is a loaded question, but do we recommend Soft and Quiet?
I kind of am still where I was at the beginning. I would say yes, but with some caveats. If you start watching this and you feel like it's going to be too much, you're probably right. And I don't think that there's any shame in tapping out.
Sure.
But I don't regret watching it. I don't know that I'll ever want to sit with these people again for 90 minutes, but it's a hell of a feat of filmmaking and acting, if nothing else.
Sure, I agree. And I promise not to put as much of a bummer of a movie on next season's schedule. Because I think this is kind of, now that we've done Judas and the Black Messiah and this, we've kind of tackled this subject pretty well. I agree. I think if you are easily triggered by some of these things like that, especially if you are a person of color, this may be a bit much for you. If you've had any experience like this, again, as Nathan said, I would not fault you at all for not sitting through this whole thing. But it's also not just the content of the film. It's the fact that it's a very real reflection of the real world is also very troubling. And especially because now we're going into yet another term for a president that I do not care for. We're on the cusp of that inauguration. This may be not the right time for you to watch this movie. Right. But again, I think it's an important movie. I think it's a very well-made movie. I'm excited to see what the director does after this. I know she's already got another film lined up. I'm very eager. This was her first feature, and I think she did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
So, any final thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, on Soft and Quiet before we get out of here?
So before we started doing this podcast, my mom called me and I was explaining to her this movie and she was like, that movie is a real movie. That movie came out. It's a real movie. I was like, it sure is.
It's a real thing
that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. And I will say, if you're going to leave some comments on our episode, either as a rating for our show or on the YouTube channel, whatever, and they're not lining up with my ideologies, you can also be soft and quiet and not do it. So don't even bother.
Or you could just say, do Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah.
God damn it.
That's feedback we'll accept. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. Sure. All right. Well, if you haven't already, please subscribe and leave a rating and some feedback if it's going to be positive. We really appreciate that. You can follow us on social media on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. And you can also check out our subreddit at reddit.com/r/silverliningsplaylist. You can check out our website at tslppodcast.com. as well as our Patreon at patreon.com/silverliningsplaylist, where, again, the aforementioned Show Guys podcast is probably going to be wrapping up soon, but we just dropped a new episode back on the 1st of the month and the year, a brand new episode that we just came out where we talked about casting a remake of Showgirls in 2025, where a lot more Jeff Bezos talk than you would imagine.
He called in. It was wild.
If you can believe it, Jeff Bezos called in to talk about it. It was crazy.
Wow.
And it's only $1 a month with a 7-day free trial, so you can check that out.
Yeah.
And Priscilla does not endorse any of the shenanigans we do on the show. Just FYI.
I completely understand. No, so the other day, Priscilla, you'll appreciate this. The other day I was telling Ashley, I was like, yeah, we finished we got the live stream tomorrow. We just did. And I played her the clip of Jeff Bezos calling into our show. And then I was like, yeah, Dustin and I are talking about how, it's probably gonna start wrapping up soon. And she goes, yeah, you can't keep doing this.
This is what I tell him. He was like doing show guy stuff and stuff I was like, this is a lot. You have a family. Your family misses you.
Dustin, please, we've been begging you, come back. The dinner's getting cold. I'm like, no, show guys.
Oh, it's so funny. Yeah.
Dustin, can I get Priscilla's wow?
Wow.
Right as a button?
Yeah, that's so good. Yes.
Just the wow.
We got it clean. I'll put it in there for you. But yeah, if you heard that bit part clip we played earlier and you're like, hey, I got a bit part that would do well for the show. Yeah. There's just a small character in a movie that says a funny line or something thought-provoking that you think would be a good submission to our bit part collection. You can email us at the Silver Linings Playlist at gmail.com or use the contact us form on our website and submit a bit part suggestion for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's it. And lastly, Nathan, next week is your pick and you're going to give us a clue for what we're talking about.
Daddy, that gross guy is back again.
Oh, it's almost the birthday girl.
Oh, God.
Next week, you know what we're going to be saying? We're going to be saying, let me in now, to your ears.
That's right.
Because we're going to be talking about a very fun movie from 2024.
Daddy!
Let me listen to the podcast!
Sounds like Dr. Rock. So
my family is in the next room, just very confused,
very concerned. So you know what? I before we get out of here, Nathan, one last thing. I am ashamed because this is now, I think, the 5th episode this season, and I have been neglecting something so big.
Your family?
Well, besides that, I have been neglecting something so big here, and it's something I was supposed to say at the end of the episode, and I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Well, I finally remembered. Rest in peace, oatmeal.
Oh, of course.
I thought you were going to say abracadabra.
I love my wife so much.
I love my wife.
As always, fuck racist. I don't know what else to tell you.
Hey, that's as good a sign off as any.
I love my wife so much.
I love my wife.
Yay.
Yay. Can you get that yay as a soundboard bit?
Yeah.
Wait, where's your fuck Donald Trump? Get that soundbite in there.
Yeah. Fuck Donald Trump. You want me to play that song? That'll be the tag at the end of this episode.
Fuck Donald Trump. Fuck Donald Trump. Yeah, nigga, fuck Donald Trump.
Hello, YouTube. If you've made it this far, thanks. Could you do us one more favor? Could you hit those like and subscribe buttons? Maybe leave us a comment on what you think of the show. We'd really appreciate it. Join us again next week for an all-new episode. Bye.